Welcome to Candid Africa, truthful and unapologetic.
The preamble says that all nations, small or large, are equal. Are we equal when it comes to the permanent seats? No, we're not equal. The preamble states in writing that all nations are equal whether they are small or large. Do we have the right to veto? Are we equal? The preamble says that we have equal rights whether we are large or small. That is what is stated and what we agreed in the preamble. So the veto contradicts the Charter. The permanent seats contradict the Charter. We neither accept nor recognize the veto. The preamble of the Charter states that armed force shall not be used save in the common interests. That is the preamble that we agreed to and signed, and we joined the United Nations because we wanted the Charter to reflect that. It says that armed force shall only be used in the common interests of all nations. But what has happened since then? 65 wars have broken out since the establishment of the United Nations and the Security Council. 65 since their creation, with the millions more victims than the Second World War. Are those wars and the aggression and force that were used in those 65 wars in the common interest of us all? No. They were in the interest of 1 or 3 or 4 countries, but not of all nations. We will talk about whether those wars were in the interests of one country or of all nations. That flagrantly contradicts the Charter of the United Nations that we signed, and unless we act in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations to which we all agreed, we will reject it and not be afraid not to speak diplomatically to anyone. Now we are talking about the future of the United Nations. There should be no hypocrisy or diplomacy. Because it concerns the important and vital issue of the future of the world. It was hypocrisy that brought about 65 wars since the establishment of the United Nations. The preamble also states that if armed forces is used, it must be a United Nations force. Thus military intervention by the United Nations with the joint agreement of the United Nations, not 1 or 2 or 3 countries using armed force. The entire United Nations will decide to go to war to maintain international peace and security. Since the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, if there's an act of aggression by one country against another, the entire United Nations should deter and stop that act. If a country, Libya for instance, were to exhibit aggression against France, then the entire organisation would respond because France is a sovereign state, member of the United Nations, and we all share the collective responsibility to protect the sovereignty of all nations. However, 65 aggressive wars have taken place without any United Nations action to prevent them. Eight other massive, fierce wars, whose victims number some 2 million, have been waged by member states that enjoy veto powers. those countries would have us believe they seek to maintain the sovereignty and independence of peoples and to use aggressive force against peoples. While we would like to believe that these countries want to work for peace and security in the world and protect peoples, they have instead resorted to aggressive wars and hostile behavior. Enjoying the veto they granted themselves as permanent members of the Security Council, they have initiated wars that have claimed millions of victims. The principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of states is enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. No country, therefore, has the right to interfere in the affairs of any government, be it democratic or dictatorial. Democratic, dictatorial, socialist or capitalist, reactionary or progressive. This is the responsibility of each society. It is an internal matter for the people of the country concerned. The senators of Rome once appointed their leader Julius Caesar a dictator because it was good for Rome at that time. No one can say of Rome at that time that it gave Caesar the veto. The veto is not mentioned in the Charter. We joined the United Nations because we thought we were equals, only to find that one country can object to all the decisions we make. Who gave the permanent members their status in the Security Council? 4 of them granted this status to themselves. The only country that we in this assembly elected to a permanent member status in the Security Council is China. This was done democratically. But the other seats were imposed upon us in an undemocratically through a dictatorial procedure carried out against our will, and we should not accept it.
Did you like or hate what you heard? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want more candid speeches like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch all our latest videos. And please feel free to leave your suggestions, news tips, or topics about Africa you'd like us to cover.